Lord.
All right, everybody, welcome into Saturday Evening Quarantine, Volume 9. I'm David Jackson, joined by Hall of Famer Steve Brown, Randy Jackson on the Mass General Store presidential, lamp side campfire deal over there.
Nice.
You've got more sets in your house than I thought we had rooms.
You know, when you're an old TV guy, man, you think in those terms. Wake up in the morning and go, okay, what am I going to use today?
Fireside chats. I like it.
Yeah.
There is a fireplace right there. So
there is. If it was 50 degrees cooler, I might fire it up.
Yeah. How's everybody this week?
Doing well. How about you?
Doing all right. You got a little rum and Coke there today? What was that?
Straight Coke, and my Jim Nance Hello Friends glass.
Oh, man. I thought you would it's a weekend, man. I thought you'd go straight up RC and a moon pie today.
I still got a little yard work left today. So
come on there.
Yeah, it's too hot for yard work. Come on.
Hey, I knew something was up. You got your Wilford Brimley starter kit on there with your little button-up shirt. If you'd just had one of those hats.
Let me get my oatmeal over here.
That's the right thing to do. Cut the grass on Saturdays is the right thing to do. Oh man, well you can't beat that. Can't beat that. So got plenty to get into, and we hope to entertain yet again. Starting to get a little closer to players reporting back. Heard from my neighbor here that sometime middle of July they ought to be in what they feel like might be camp, maybe. But that kind of continues to change. So all signs pointing to that in the direction of a full season right now, but I guess we'll find out more. So hopefully we aren't called upon by the higher ups for entertainment value until then. That could be tough.
Tough deal.
We'll have to get a little bit more funding for that to go down. So let's see what we got here this week. All right. I'm going to have to do the old screen share here and get us right into it. So Brownie's so loaded with stories this week. I feel like we've almost got to get right to it because, it'll take us all day if we don't. So preliminary or our weekly shout out to the sponsor we only kind of have. What was the status report on the hats there?
Well, I think David saw the last show and he said he got so tired. I think the key was once you said they're going to change their marketing, their whole marketing brand meeting next week. He said, damn it, give me the guy's addresses. I'm sending the hats. So he's going solo to send hats. I told him I gave all the hats to customers. They were in the back of my car. Number one rules of salesman, don't ever show your hats in the back because they'll attack the hats. So he said, give me the guy's address.
Funny thing
it's nice to have him as a sponsor, but this is what did you say, David? Week 9?
Week 9.
Week 9. Yeah.
Prices are going up. Prices are going up.
Yeah, but Soulsby's probably on me on board about a month, maybe 4. Give me 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, by the time we get those, I hope they send us the hats that have ear flaps on them for the winter.
The funny thing was I was thinking about an attachment the other day, and I didn't have anything to really draw my attention to who might be able to help me with that. So I just kind of let it go. Yeah, can't play without your attachments. Anyway, moving on.
It's a banquet beer.
Thank you. This is for you from your boy Monk Rice, former teammate of yours. He sent us an email. I gotta read the email. I gotta. Actually, I might just pull this up on my phone because this was. He's actually been on this for a couple of weeks, and he has emailed us at the It's a Banquet Beer Gmail address. That being it's a banquet beer @gmail.com, and he was disappointed with the aesthetics of the show. So he sent an email. He said, all right, the title of the email is called Face Removal. And he said, the voice of Brown is okay for the podcast, but looking at his face is still a hard pill to swallow. Might the viewers suggest keeping his voice and the removal of his face? My request is reflected by the entire audience. Thank you for your time and immediate action. I said, my response to him was, we'd have to renegotiate his contract, and I'm not sure we have enough banquet beers left to meet his demands. And so he says back, the team appreciates the fact that you and your father have already considered the removal of Brown's face. Number 8 was great, and looking forward to number 9. So there you go. Monk Rice, this is for you. We have done the best we could do with the facial removal there, but do you have a retort?
Every week I talked to him, he said, did David say anything about my email? I said, no. So he just get real quiet. I knew something was brewing. I didn't know what it was.
Well, Monk, we appreciate you helping us out with the visuals here. So former player type thing. I had somebody email also wanting to know about whether or not we could go through a Brian Quick recollection period, as we have some others. I think we did Armani last week, and we've talked about offensive linemen, though we left all the most notable ones off the list, apparently, as we were told by Mike Flynn. He's like, how could you have an O-line list and forget about these guys? Like, oh yeah, they played too. they were awesome. But anyway, so Brian Quick, Quick is open is the message board rallying cry for Quick, because by and large he was always open. I don't know. You guys got any quick stories? As I got some highlights actually.
Yeah, when I think about him, I mean, he was such a great. His prototype body type was just perfect for a wide receiver, and he continued to get better. I think when he first came there, he was so raw. That's probably how we ended up getting him. But once he developed and got better and better, he had a prototype body as far as length, height, and speed. I think the one thing that he had to work on when he got to the NFL level was getting off the press coverage, because those guys are about his same size and very strong in the line of scrimmage. He got better and better as he went on. But every time I think of him, was it the October Halloween game against Wofford?
Yep.
He went ballistic.
Yep.
I mean, they had him double covered, and he's still catching long passes.
Yep. I remember there was a play cut in one of our opening sequences to the football broadcast, and I can't remember exactly what catch it was, but there was a ball that was overthrown. It was I believe Armani was still playing quarterback at the time, and hey, look, there's actually a highlight from the Virginia Tech game. I didn't realize we had any of those in that game. But there was a play, there was a ball that was thrown, and it was just airmailed, gonna go over his head. And I think the play call went something like, that ball is way overthrown. And then the both of us just react. It's like, whoa, he just climbed the ladder and pulled it out of the air like Michael Jordan or something like that. He was, I think, for my money, he was the most athletic and athletically gifted wide receiver that App had during our time. I can't think of anybody that could contort his body in ways that he was asked to do so, to be able to make the play, to make the catch, first down grabs, touchdown grabs, what have you. He could just go get it.
David, I agree with you. The thing that I always liked was I got to see him really close up down on the field. And a lot of times you'd be at a spot where he was either going to catch the ball or you thought that he was going to go. And I think he had one of the greatest pair of hands of a guy that I've ever seen play for Appalachian. Just incredible presence to the ball. And you said athleticism, but I mean, he was almost acrobatic in what he did. And there were many times that I was standing down on the field on the sideline, and as you guys thought, sat there or stood there and said, there's no way in the world he's going to get that ball. And somehow he was able to do it. And it wasn't just once or twice. I mean, he made a living doing that. And he was just one of the most exciting players and fun players to watch, and a super nice kid as well.
Yeah, here comes the money shot. This was from, go get it. Dunking it over the goalpost. That was from the Wofford game. That was one of my favorite Coach Moore stories, actually, was right after that happened. You remember, Brownie, he chest bumped. He and Coach Moore chest bumped.
Yeah.
And I think Coach is still trying to catch his wind. after that. Brian went to him just like he was going up with one of the fellas, and I mean he banged into him, and I don't think Coach realized there was so much contact in that particular gesture. But I know that, you know, in talking with Coach, he was always so I think he was mesmerized by Quick's abilities, and if there was a player that he kind of let go a little bit in terms of, you know, Coach always like, you know, it drive him crazy if we got penalties for excessive celebration. You know, he was kind of I call it a little bit more straight-laced, but he let Quick kind of show his personality a little bit more. And the more time that went on, the more of that he would let go and almost coach out of him. Like, you know, he knew that it was a spark plug for the team, that when Brian dunked the ball over the goalpost or made some crazy catch and hopped up out of the bottom of a pile, that tended to get that group going. And so he encouraged it. I really think, and no more so than chest bumping with him on national TV in that Wofford game that, you know, Nate Woody still closes his eyes at night and still has flashbacks and things like that. So, but Quick was certainly a good one. I think, so the question that came from the emailer was, who was the better receiver, Brian Quick or Sean Price? And obviously Sean's career got cut short, and it's a shame that, you know, it kind of went down that way. He was an amazing talent as well. I still think that Quick, while Sean Price had maybe a little bit higher getup, I think Quick made more routine plays.
Yeah, I think that's the case, David. I think, you know, Sean Price, you had the potential, but you take a look at potential. All that is what can you do next Saturday and the following Saturday. Brian Quick showed up every day at practice. I think that's what endeared him to Coach Warren's staff. He worked his butt off to improve on his raw talents.
Yep.
I don't think Sean took the same, you know, work ethic.
Right. And you know, Quick was, so Quick was on the Michigan team, the team that beat Michigan in 2007, and then he never played again after that game, or maybe he may have played in the Lenore-Ryan game, but he ended up getting a medical red shirt that year for a back injury. And, you know, he like Corey Lynch shouldn't have been around in 2007. Quick shouldn't have been around in 2009 either, or not 2009. Whatever that last season was, kind of another championship season. So he played 8, 9, 10, 11 were his 4 years, redshirted in 7. So, you know, he was around for a while, and, you know, obviously played himself into an NFL opportunity and kicked around in the league for quite a while. Never really got established, but he was a guy that, you know, I think if he'd have been kind of like Armani, if he'd have been in a better situation, he might have had a better opportunity to maybe not have to be so much pressure on him to perform right out of the gate. You know, I think when he was drafted as like an immediate hope type guy, and just like he was when he came to App, he needed a little bit of time to develop the body and maintain his athleticism at that level, and unfortunately it just didn't pan out to the career that we all thought that he could have. But he's a good one. He wears number 8 pretty well.
He looks a lot better than the old number 8.
He was this. I thought maybe this was a Halloween game. He was dressed like you for Halloween with the number 8, but he wore it well. There've been some good ones. How have you not given enough money to Yosef Club to get your number retired yet? Isn't that how that works?
Yeah, that's exactly how that works.
Yeah. Right. We'll see if we can get a GoFundMe page out there to get number 8 retired for Brownie and Brian Quick and any other number 8s that are out there that may be first ballot Hall of Famers, because Quick certainly was. All right, so we're going into the archives here. We got some stories for this week. You want to start with the barbecue sandwich? The barbecue sandwich massacre, even. All right, so hook us up. You got to tell this story, because while I completely agree that it's 100% true, I don't remember the details quite like you do.
Well, that's when, you know, they were doing the addition over at the main side, the home side, and we were at the visitors' little mini booths over there. So we were a lot lower to the ground. And I remember it was a playoff game, I'm pretty sure, Dave, because I remember checking in and coming in that gate, and Doc Canoy was taking up tickets, and we had a little chat and talked about the good old days. And I asked him how he's doing, where he's living, and what, you know, he said, here, taking up tickets. Yes, but had a little scanner and had the badges and everything. And so we had a good little conversation. So about midway, I think it was about midway through the third quarter, a little bit of lull in the action. And I'm looking down, we're about 15 feet above the corner there. And I'm looking down and I see Doc Canoy, and he's got a barbecue sandwich, 2 buns, and it looked just like this picture here, about 2 pounds of meat on it. You're trying to be real neat, and he's got both hands on it, and he is destroying this barbecue sandwich. And I look at you, kind of give you the elbow, you start giggling. Next thing you know, go into a play-by-play of the barbecue sandwich massacre. I mean, he was getting after it. You take a bite, and we were enjoying how long it took him to chew the bite. And we kind of lost track of the ball game. And I cannot remember the ball game, but I think we were leading the ball game, and you started.
I hope we were.
Play. Like he's at the 20, 25, 30. And so I think Doc Canoy heard about it, because the next week we come back and I see him. He says, you know how dry he was? He said, Steve, I heard you describe, you and David did a play-by-play on the sandwich. Doc Canoy, that was incredible. He said, it was a good sandwich. Yeah, it looked like it.
Oh man!
So was the meat tender? I mean, what was the time of the chews and the go back for the bite?
If I remember this right, he was pretty thorough. He was thorough.
He chewed well.
He didn't miss
medical background like that. He didn't want to get choked up. So he made sure that he chewed it thoroughly. And I remember he was like the Uber volunteer, right? So he was athletic trainer for
long time.
Years, right? Well, or not athletic trainer, team doctor, or something like that for decades. And
I think he's the head trainer.
Yeah, he was around all the time. He was a ticket scanner. He was at every event. He was just always around. And yeah, so when you told me that you were going to bring this up, I thought, well, why not? At least somebody got a barbecue sandwich out of the deal, because we rarely did.
We didn't.
You guys have no right to complain about what you got and didn't get.
It's totally different on that side over there when they're doing the construction. That was very limited menu for me.
That was a very limited menu. I will say that I heard from our pie suppliers again this week, and they did say that they would be willing to decorate us with some pecan pies for the program here.
Awesome.
So how about that?
That was one of the other things while we've got the barbecue sandwich up. You are right. We did get our fair share of tailgate food delivered to us, and some of it was very, very good. Some of it was not. and Brownie was, I don't know how he got elected this. It was a silent election, ballot of one, and he was the only one with a vote. But Brownie was the PR behind the food handoff. And you could always tell if we knew that it came from a trusted source, because if it did, it would go right on top of the table near the little Pigskin Prelude broadcast site for immediate consumption. If it didn't, there was a side little piece next to the table of the stage that you could still fit some stuff on and still move around on it. So you knew if there was food down there, that was not good. That was let that go. Give that to a student. If the food was up top, that meant it was fair for the picking. So Brownie was our taste tester and food ambassador.
Like go to a family reunion, you know which aunts and uncles bring the good stuff.
Without question.
You know which guys go by J&S cafeteria and get the bad stuff.
There was some really good food though.
There was. We were spoiled back there for sure. So, all right. So moving on from the barbecue sandwich, Brownie, you've got let's see, the App State ER from 1972. Hit us up with that.
Now this comes from one of my historical guys. I talked to John Keaton this week, an ex-tight end, and I talked to.
Wait a second. Does historical guy mean old guy?
Yes. And,
okay.
And
all right. Just clarifying.
Good sense of history. And so Robbie Kirkpatrick's telling me this story. We again get back on the budget and the travel, and Robbie and John Keaton and a couple guys were talking this week about how Coach Brakefield could not get over how bad we play on the road sometimes. And I think some of it came down to travel situation. Well, this particular situation, Robbie said it's his first road trip, and they're on the way to Western Kentucky. if you remember back in the day, Western Kentucky was really, really good.
Yes.
And they had, I think at some level, won a national championship and played for a couple. And of course, East Kentucky back there when Roy Kidd was coaching was always strong.
They were a national championship team too.
Yeah. So Robbie said they're on the way. They got 2 buses going. Coach Brakefield told them to use the restroom before they left. And they're on the way up there to Western Kentucky. He said, we're somewhere out of Knoxville. A bunch of people, of course, trying to take a nap and try to rest up a little bit. And all of a sudden, remember Dr. Ashby was the team doctor forever, Evan Ashby, great guy. And Dr. Ashby said, ho, ho, ho. And across the median, there had been a wreck. Doc Ashby gets his little bag, runs down the stairs. He's in the first bus with Coach Brakefield, runs across the median, takes a look at the situation. At this point, it's a 1-car wreck. And the guy, bless his heart, had been thrown out of the car. So everybody's like, what's going on? Because the bus came to a pretty quick stop on the interstate. Doc Ashby goes over, you see him, Robbie says you see him looking at the guy, checking. Doc Ashby walks back with his bag, gets on the bus, said, let's go. He's got one leg going east, one leg going west. Can't help this guy.
Wow. How about that?
So there's a couple other cars that converged on the scene, and Robbie and everybody's like, what's going on? The guy's dead? So Doc Ashby said, he's got one leg going west, one going east. We can't help that guy. Let's go. Coach Brakefield said, get them going. Close the doors. Boom.
Take off. Wow.
Go.
Wow.
That's a story.
First responder. Yeah, just like maybe the pre-first responder.
It didn't end well.
Did he leave a note or anything about medical care instructions?
I don't think so. He said a couple of guys that, a couple of cars. The best part about the story, they go up there and they go for 2. They get it. And I think Robbie said the score is 8-6.
You're talking about the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
They beat Western Kentucky 8-6, and they come back the next year. They come down to Conrad Stadium at that time, and the coach was pretty upset that Appalachia come up there and beat them. And the next year, Western Kentucky won 42-7. And
Wow.
Robbie said those Western Kentucky teams back then, they were playing South Carolina a lot. He said they were much more talented as a total team than South Carolina was back in those days.
Yep. Now, Western Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, but before the split to 1AA, back in the small college days, they were stout. And then Eastern Kentucky, when they made the split, they won a couple. I think like in the early '80s, they were a perennial national title contender under Roy Kidd.
And I think, and I didn't realize this till I started looking back some schedules and stuff. East Tennessee for a long time played in that same league, the OVC.
Yeah, they were in the OVC. Yeah. Sure were. Interesting. Wow. Well, that's you're bringing all of them out. All right. So back to travel woes again. I feel like you should have been a travel agent.
Yeah, this one is a good one. We're going down to play North Alabama, and the year before Appalachian had drummed them, and they're going down to play North Alabama. Well, Coach Brakefield and Jim Jones, I guess the AD at the time, decided they're going to fly down the day of the game. All right, so they get up at like 3:30. They get on a plane at Johnson City about 5 o'clock, fly down to Muscle Shoals, Alabama. This is the best part of the story. Robbie said they go to this little like Motel 6 on the side of the road, and Coach Brakefield and everybody instructs everybody to go lay in their room. They got the roommates. They get a room, but not to pull the bedspreads down and take a really good nap. Just lay on top of the bedspreads. So they're warming up, and Robbie and Tommy Sofield and all the guys are looking down the other end, and they'd read the paper that morning when they first got there about how Mickey Andrews, if you remember that name, who's defense coordinator at Florida State, had taken the job. And Robbie said they're warming up. They start looking at it and said, man, they got guys that look like they could play for Alabama, Auburn, Georgia. And they read that article that morning. Mickey Andrews came in, first-year coach, got a lot of transfers, a lot of junior college kids. Make a long story short, North Alabama whipped us. Phil Caccialetti threw 5 interceptions, bless his heart. He saved me from being in the record book. Like 5 Oskies against North Alabama. But can you imagine in today's era flying down for a night game the day of the game?
Well, you'll remember that happened
Do we do the same thing?
in 2005 with the LSU game because of Katrina.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a small group that went down ahead. Usually, team flies out, Friday afternoon, what have you, and they go down and play a game like that and fly home. Well, in 2005, after Katrina came through, all of the hotels in and around Baton Rouge were being used by FEMA for hurricane victims. I mean, it was still really bad. And most of them were from New Orleans, and they were brought up that way. So the team hotel was full of FEMA rooms at the time. So there were 4 of us, I believe. So Sparks and I got to go down with John Welch, who was the assistant equipment manager at the time. Or no, I take that back. He was the equipment manager at the time. And then William Thompson, who was the old equipment manager. And the 4 of us went down because we wanted to get our broadcast gear down there and make sure that we could get set up and everything, as the team was going to do just what you talked about. They drove down to Winston-Salem, I believe it was, and flew out day of the game. There's a great part to this story that I got to tell in a second, a side piece on Gerald Adams. So they fly down day of the game. They get to Baton Rouge mid-afternoon. It was a night game that night. I think they left Winston at like 11. So they got down to Baton Rouge about 1. They went to the hotel, and they could still have their pregame meal there in a meeting room and stuff there. And then they bust over and played the game, turned around and made it home. They never spent a night out of their own rooms for that game against LSU, which we played really well. You remember, that was a 14, I think it was 14-0 going into the 4th quarter. And there were some nervous people around Tiger Stadium that night. But so I don't know exactly how we talked ourselves into being 2 of the 4. But the deal is that they said, all right, you can go down there to get your setup done, because we knew that the timing of the trip, if anything got messed up, we'd miss our airtime to be on for the broadcast. So we got talked into going down there. And they said, you guys can go, but you are going to be the equipment staff as well. So Sparks and I got down there and we helped unload the truck and set up the locker room and do all the stuff. And then we went and did the rest of our deal there at Tiger Stadium. This was before they renovated it. When we went back in 2008, it was a whole lot nicer, but this was pre-renovation, and it was still a battered area, because they had so much damage and destruction down there. But yeah, it was really weird. There were 2 hotel rooms available for us, and we were staying in the hotel, that Holiday Inn down there in Baton Rouge, with all hurricane victims who had been there for a while. So it wasn't like they were just hanging out at the hotel. They were living there. I mean, it was a living situation. One of the most bizarre sets of circumstances ever. But Willie T, as always, Willie T did. He was our scout, and he said, "Hey guys, I got a place for us to go tonight." And we ended up at some ridiculous, like, eating things straight out of the creek type place that Willie found us, and it was like everything fried straight out of the water. It was delicious, but we told Willie, he's like, you know what, you're a volunteer on this trip. We're not going to let you plan these things anymore, because I mean it was like, I know that thing was breathing 10 minutes ago, and now here it is on my plate. So anyway, there's some other that trip too.
Wasn't 2008 hurricane you're down there too?
Yes, it was. Well, before I get into that, let me tell this Gerald story first. So Adam Witten is our sideline reporter that year. And Adam and and all of Jake Strutt's guys were all together. They were the staff on the plane. And by the time they landed, you're talking 8:00 kickoff, or I think 7:00 kickoff local time there. So, usually 6 hours before the game, all the support staff is in place at a game like that. And they didn't have the ability to come in and do anything the day before. So a lot of times, like, Jake would set up his tripods and make sure all his guys knew where they were going. Well, they had to do all that right at the time. So the team is going to the hotel, right? They're good. And the hotel from the stadium is not anywhere near each other. There is a staff bus that includes some donors on it. and Gerald is in charge of this bus. Lord rest his soul. So, so Adam, Jake Stroot, several equipment managers who are needed at the stadium because they're starting to roll out the game day stuff. They're on this staff bus. Well, we get a message from Adam said we've landed. We're on our way. Everybody knows the team is in town, and we're just waiting and waiting. And he had some stuff and some gear with him still. I'm waiting and waiting. We're just like, where are they? We get this call from Adam, and he's like, we're at the mall. They decided that all the donors needed to eat, so we stopped at the mall to eat. And they have the rest of the staff, like pinned up in this bus, and they're still not far enough, or they're too far away for them to make a quick trip to especially in game day traffic in Baton Rouge, to get them over there and get back to get the donors and bring them back. So they ended up, I think they ended up getting to the stadium. I remember right, that game started at 7. They showed up maybe 45 minutes before the team did. And they were hot. I mean, there were people running around like crazy. Poor Willie T and John Welch made their money and then some that day because they were a 2-man crew doing like a 12-person job for the most part. And it was so cool in Baton Rouge at the time, as you can imagine. It was interesting trip all the way around. But that played pretty well in that game. They found out in the locker room prior to that game that I think the way that it worked was that Georgia Southern beat Furman. So the championship, the 05 championship was in play again. And they found out right before kickoff that happened. So there was a looseness about that group that they went out and thought, hey, we can just go play. We don't have to worry about anything. We had Western the next week in Boone, and Western was actually pretty decent that year for Western standards. That must have meant they won 3 games instead of 2. But they had an opportunity to beat us. That was Kent Briggs was there then. It was a pretty good scenario. So 08 was a little bit different. I don't know how much Brownie wants to tell about 08. You made some friends that day.
I'm ready to roll.
Well, let me set it up first. So we're coming off our national championship. LSU wins the national championship in 07. So this season opener is billed as the 2 national champions of Division I are getting ready to play each other. So there's a lot of pomp and circumstance about this game. It's the season opener anyway. And first time we'd had an opportunity to play a team like that since beating Michigan. So obviously there was a lot played into that. And, good group of guys coming back on that 08 team. So I'm down there. I had to go down Thursday by myself. So I come to pick you guys up at the airport when the team got there Friday. And as I'm driving up, Bobby Jindal, who was the governor of Louisiana at the time, or he may have still been the mayor of New Orleans, I can't remember. He was one of the two. And he was on the radio as I'm pulling up to the airport saying, all right, we're in a state of emergency. There's another hurricane coming. It's basically taking the same path that Katrina was going to take. It wasn't going to be as bad, but the flooding was going to be terrible, and we're starting to shut stuff down. Big Yosef trip planned for New Orleans, and they got there and basically had stuff start shutting down on them as they got there. So there's like all these eerie pictures that people were taking of Bourbon Street completely void of people, except for our fans wondering where everything was. So anyway, we that game was supposed to be another night game, and it got pushed to 11 o'clock in the morning to get us out of there to go. So the state troopers that escorted the team were saying, yeah, when we're done escorting you guys to the airport after this game, we're going back down to New Orleans and starting to do mandatory evacuations. I mean, I never remember being in a place where I felt like we were so out of place. It was like, we don't need to be playing a football game today. These people are trying to get situated for this storm. And here we are kind of muddying up the works here. So we had to get to the stadium for an 11 a.m. kick local. That meant a 9 a.m. pregame show. That meant, because all the members of our crew like to get there like 4.5, 5, 6 hours before games started. We had to be there like 3:30 in the morning or something. It wasn't that early, but it was
all
early.
The members of our crew like to get
well,
there
maybe just
early?
maybe one member of the crew decided we had to be there before the sun showed up on a good day. So I think we left the hotel at about 5, and we're walking through the parking lot. And 5 o'clock before that game, tailgating looked like 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
There's no coffee anywhere. Let's get that straight.
Okay, no coffee anywhere. It's 5 a.m. and everybody had been tailgating for about 3.5 days down there. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Yes.
You take it from there, Brownie.
Well, we tried to stop. I said, man, I got to have some coffee, coming out of the hotel, get there. I mean, there's one lady, bless her heart, back there working. She's not got no coffee ready. We get in the van. I said, DJ, we got to have some coffee. There's nowhere open. I said, man, there's got to be a convenience store somewhere. We started a convenience store. They were closed. Stopped another one. They didn't have any coffee ready. So, man, I'm struggling and just felt like death warmed over. So we come tromping through the parking lot, and everybody's got a bag, and there's probably about, what, 7 or 8 of us?
Yeah.
And Randy was there, right? Randy's
Yeah.
there. So there's about 7 or 8, and all of a sudden there's about 25 frat guys still stayed up, still hammered. They start yelling, "Tiger bait," right?
Tiger bait, yes.
Yep.
Tiger bait, tiger bait. Well, after about 25 seconds of that, I snapped, turned around, and threatened them with a little bit of everything. And then I think I commenced to saying I hope some of their family got caught in a hurricane, which I regret. But at that time, I turned around thinking I got my boys behind me. Y'all are like 20 yards away. I'm like, I'm going to get my.
Wait a second. All right. We got to back this up. I think we got to clarify. There was a line that was used in that made us take off, right? Because we're like, Brown is about to get killed and we're not going to be anywhere near this. So we're walking up the sidewalk. Brown's right, about 25 people, maybe even more than that. We walked by a very elaborate tailgate.
Couple kegs.
They had food, they had drinks, they had lots of old drinks. I mean, they had been there for, like I say, for days easily. And they were, I mean, when you're in a situation like that and you walk into enemy territory wearing the colors of the other school, you are ridiculed quite a bit. We had definitely taken our fair share over the years, but nothing like that day. And I mean, they were just giving it to us straight on. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. Old Sanka over here is pissed off because he hadn't had a cup of coffee yet. And so we walk past them, and we're past them. And this one guy like follows us as he's riding us, just absolutely brutal. And we're the freaking radio crew, right? Imagine what they do to the team. Well, so Brown does snap back as they're going, tiger bait, tiger bait, tiger bait. He goes, hurricane bait. And the guy just stops. He's like, you're talking about our lives, man. I mean, it was just like the switch flipped. And we're like, oh, no, we're going to die
That's
right
when you
now.
left me. That's when you left me.
We did leave you. We left. Yes, we left you by a lot. And Sparks is next to me. He's like, did he just say that? Just go. Let's go. So, yeah. Sorry, man. We left you. We left you on that hill.
I got to tell you, Brownie, in all my years of doing weather, and I've been to countless numbers of hurricanes, I've never, ever heard that one used before. And it still ranks as number one of all the things I've ever heard associated with hurricanes in my career.
The night before, I was hanging out with Mike Eggers and Bill Cook and Dave Pastuzik over there. And Mike had his RV there, and the AC quit working. And we were inside and outside of the RV, and you could cut the humidity with a knife. You remember how humid?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It was unbelievable.
It was. Well, it was August in Baton Rouge. Anyway.
They had some people at 11 and 11:30 being treated for heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
At that ball game. It was crazy.
You know, the thing that I remember in that scenario too was after the game, because we always had rental cars.
Yeah.
And do you remember that police escort that we got to the airport? That was one of the wildest police escorts I've ever seen. I mean, we were in opposite lanes, and there were people evacuating at the time. And those troopers did one heck of a job. And then we got to the airport, and the planes weren't there. Or the plane wasn't there. We had to sit and wait for the plane.
I remember Dale Alexander was a travel agent back then, and he was sitting there by the gate. And he and Jay Sutton, and Jay, you could always tell when Jay was mad because Jay would just be sitting there rubbing his bald head just like this. And he's sitting there rubbing it. We played that was that game that we kind of got beat up a little bit toward the end of the first half, but actually hung pretty tough in the second half and played those guys pretty well. And so there was upset. You know, everybody's upset after a loss, no matter what. And Jay's just fuming. He's like, he said, Dave, I don't understand how a team beats a plane for a game that started at 11 o'clock. And we sat there for a while, but those troopers peeled out and went right back the other way. And they were going, I remember there was a cleaning crew that came through the press box probably trying to wipe up the blood from Brown's trail in there after he got beat down by the track guys. But they were in the press box cleaning before the game, and they were like, after the game, we're going home to board up our houses. And it was just like, man, why are we here? Why are we doing this? This seems so ridiculous. And if I remember right, the press conference that the governor or the mayor had, I guess he was governor at the time.
Yeah, he was.
They said to him, you know, like one of the first questions, it's like, we're evacuating, you know, we're doing all this stuff. It's like first big hurricane post Katrina, everybody's anxious, right? First question from a media member, is the game going to be played tomorrow? And he's like, yeah, we're going to still play the game. We're working with the officials to move it up. And so the team didn't find out that happened until they landed. So they landed at, you know, middle afternoon on Friday, and Charlie let Jerry know right when they landed. He had just found out. So he's like, hey, coach, nothing you can do about it. So coach is walking down the steps, and there's a media group there. You go to those big places, they've got cameras there to film you coming in. It's like the Beatles were showing up or something. And they're asking him, they're like, coach, what do you think about having to play tomorrow at 11? He's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You know, we just found out. So they adjusted the schedule, and they did the best they could. But usually those trips are like such clockwork too. You know, it's like you leave at 11, we're leaving at 11, and you do this at this time and this at this time. To change that for a game of that magnitude, it was a mainline ESPN broadcast, which was rare for us for a regular season game against a team like that back in the day. But it was a big deal. And all of a sudden, Les Miles, I guess that was his first game because Saban was a coach in 07, right? So that was Miles' first game, I think, as head coach at LSU.
Who was in 07, you said? Saban?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless, well, no, maybe that might not be right. I think Miles, Saban was coaching in 05. Stacey Searles was with him in 05, if I remember right.
And that's when Jamarcus Russell was a quarterback for them, right?
Yeah, that was another one of the great Jerry things. And, you know, maybe I take that back. I think maybe Saban left right after the 04 year because Les Miles was there in 05. And Jerry and Les are talking on the field before the game. And he's like, hey, who's that offensive lineman over there throwing the ball? He could be a quarterback. And Les goes, that is our quarterback. Which prompted him. Oh, geez.
He was a big dude.
He was. He could sling the rock, man. They had Joseph Adai on that team. I mean, that was a good team in 05. And App hung right with him. Kevin Richardson had a big run. He had a big run that was cut a little bit short. We were about to score and make it 14-7 early in the fourth quarter. And that would have, you know, we were watching all the big donors get around us a little bit tight. If you remember the 08 game too, we started that game. The first play from scrimmage in that game was the same play that Dexter scored the touchdown against Michigan on, that little bubble screen.
Yeah.
They ran the same play, and Coco Hillary was about that close from breaking it. Same kind of deal. He got ankle tackled, breaking away. And had he not, there's nobody anywhere near him, and Coco was fast enough to have scored that. And that would have been something.
Yeah, and I remember the first play they had, I think they ran isolation, like either a left guard or right guard, and went about 75 yards. Yeah. Hit their head on the goalpost. I mean, we had a chance to score. Don't score it, and bam, here we go.
Yep. That's sometimes how those games went.
That's one of the few games that I think that we really got outmanned at the line of scrimmage on both sides because they're supposed to, SEC. But one of the few games where I saw Armani not panic, but he played under pressure all day, and he never could really get into a rhythm. One of the few games ever I saw him really get rattled and couldn't get anything going.
Yeah, and there was a lot of pressure with that game. It was kind of like I liken it to, and Dad, you'll remember this one when Taylor Lamb went to Clemson in 15.
Yeah,
that was right before Clemson really took off and was a perennial national power at the 1 or 2 level. You know, they were good, but they weren't. That was the onset of all of that. And Taylor being from that area, and App having a good team, and you know, felt like 15 was going to be a turning point coming off the way that 14 ended. And I remember he was in the same boat. Expectations skyrocket. And Furman back when his dad was coaching there, played Clemson pretty tough a few times. And so there was you could tell there was a little bit of something, a little bit of extra juice in there. and same kind of deal. Clemson just, we battled with them for a little while, and then they started. He threw a pick, and then he threw another pick, and it just got away real quick. So.
Well, those games are always tough to begin with. I mean, when you're playing a team like that, and then when you start to add all the little nuances in there and all the little connections that some folks really aren't even aware of, the stakes really go up in those things.
So during the Clemson game in 15, we're playing, like I said, pretty well there for a little while. Midway, made it out of the first quarter. Maybe it's a one possession game. And midway through the second, we were kind of hanging around, And I remember you'll like this, Brown. So Beasley was incredibly proud because this was, if I remember right, the first time in our division, FBS level era that we had a big celebrity with us. We had Eric Church at the game that day. And this is Eric Church is 2015. This is the height of his deal. So Beasley's like, hey, I got Eric Church at the game. And so I'm like, hey, let's hook it up, man. Let's get a halftime interview. He's like, cool, got it taken care of. So Apps maybe down 10 to something, maybe, it's just close. And Eric comes up to the booth. And we're going to interview him at halftime. About 4 minutes left in the second half. Well, you remember that's when Clemson just opened it up on us. And it was just like boom, boom, boom. Before we know, it's like whiplash for everybody. We're just getting the crap beat out of us. And I'm thinking, this dude's going to leave. There's no way he's hanging around for this halftime interview. And he's just standing there with his glasses on. He's got the whole shebang going. So we get to halftime. He's still there. It's like, hey, man, thanks a lot. He's like, hey, it was kind of rough down there. So I kind of like standing back here where nobody could talk. It's like, great. So we had our little halftime interview, and he hung out there for a little while longer before we went back down. But that's before he started liking Carolina.
Oh, man. Come on. We can't win with that effort, Eric.
Can't win with that effort. Come on, Eric. Come on, Chief. Anyway, all right. You got anything else for us this week there? Oh.
Book club.
Book club. Too big to fail.
Book club.
What you got on the book club there?
It's an interesting read about the time for everybody calls it a recession, 08 to 12. I call it a depression. But kind of interesting story of how it leads up to that. Too big to fail.
Too big to fail.
Randy, you can read that on your Kindle while you're riding your bike this week.
When's your next meeting with Oprah?
She right now is scared of the virus, so maybe next month.
Okay,
well,
you guys talk about the book club when you get together?
After y'all threw me under the bus hurricane bait, I don't think I'll meet with her anymore.
Yeah, I think you're done. I think you're done on that.
Done.
Wow. Well, we'll check that out. We'll get a full book report next week, right? Yeah, double space that. It's got to be 3 pages. So.
Let Monk Rice handle that.
Monk will give us.
He's gonna be so proud.
Yeah. Well, that's a good deal. All right. Well, I guess until unless anybody else got anything, Dad, you good?
I'm good, man. I'm just waiting for the mailman to come bring my hat. When he does, I'm going to give him a beer.
Well, I'm sure you'll be sitting in that same chair next week waiting for that same hat.
Beer will be warm by then.
Good thing is that Soulsby's isn't too big to fail. They'll still be around. Their logo will be different, but they'll be there. So, all right, boys. Well, we'll say goodbye to you guys. Say goodbye to the folks. This has been episode 9 for Randy Jackson on the Mass General Store Fireside Chat Set. Steve Brown in his Hall of Fame quarters down there at the Butler cabin with his Jim Nantz class. I'm David Jackson from the Craft Room. We'll see you next week.
Have a good week, everybody.
See ya. Let's